Hello and welcome to another how-to video with me over the line. At the moment we are driving the Bentley Continental GT3 and we are at Suzuka Grand Prix Circuit. We're going to go around the track in slow motion and then at normal speed to give you guys an idea of when to brake and when to turn in and choose your racing lines before you go to our Sunday event, 25-minute race this Sunday at Checker Flag Endurance. And we will be taking this vehicle along with LMP2 around the circuit for the 90 minutes of Suzuka as well at the end of March. So we're going to switch now to the cockpit view as we just come across the line. Now coming up to the pit straight, we're going to go through the main sequence of corners coming up in sector 1 now. So we're going to go slow motion as before, and what you're going to do is instantly be presented with a 180 double apex right hand corner. This is probably the hardest corner rather to master at Suzuka. It's turn 1. It's a good overtaking opportunity, depending, especially if you're in the braking zone here, but I wouldn't recommend anything too spontaneous, shall we say. It can actually go horribly wrong if you do not get it right, especially in the Bentley. It's quite a heavy vehicle, it's quite a bit of understeer here, so we didn't do our fastest ever time around Suzuka, but it's a good baseline for you guys to judge it off. Now your braking point is going to be around here. If you look to your left hand side, it's where basically in line with the orange strips. It's quite a heavy car this, so I had to brake a bit earlier than what I would need to in, say, in the McLaren or BMW Z4, something lighter. But this is your braking point for this particular vehicle. What you want to be doing is you're braking heavily until you get to around this point here. You should be about half braking at this point because you need the car to turn in to make the corner. So you don't need full braking performance, you're only going to go straight forward instead. So it's like coming off the brake and letting the car decelerate on its own as you come into the second part of the corner. You know you're doing it right when your natural speed would want to take you to the outer curbing on the middle of the corner itself. So this is a good indicator that you're doing it right. Anything over that, then you're going too fast, I'm afraid, and if you're not hitting this curbing on the exit, then you're going too slow as well. So we're in third gear by this point, I think. Yes, we are, and we want to be able to hit this double apex. You're still decelerating, and waiting for that opportune moment to reapply the gas and then accelerate out. And that will be about here. Past the curbing on the right hand side, the curbing on the inside of the corner has now finished. You've now got grass and that's it. This is when you start to slowly apply your throttle back onto the vehicle. You don't want to floor it again. The rear end is going to be going out. You're going uphill, bear in mind, so something to take into consideration. You don't want the rear end dancing around on the exit of this corner. You're going to ruin your tyres and you're going to ruin your lap time as well. So slow application of the throttle once you're on your exit, and you should be aiming for the end of this green strip here on the left hand side, which is around here. So if you know, that's probably the best way to describe it, is that if you've done it correctly, you should be hitting the curbing around just before you get to the end of this green strip here on the left hand side, the runoff area. You can use it if you need to, if you're carrying that a bit extra speed. You won't get invalidated for it, so it's perfectly fine if you want to do that as well. It's entirely up to you. But we've now hit the curbing on the left hand side, and we want to instantly move over to the right, because now you get the very fun and fast kinks. I don't exactly know the technical term, the names of these corners, but this is the best part of Suzuka by far. So you want to be in fourth gear to start off with. You've just accelerated out the first, and you want to start thinking about turning in or coming off the gas about now. There's no braking required for this sequence of corners, shall I say. It is simply all throttle control. And that's the best way to do it. Brakes are just going to lose you time when you can just use the engine instead. You know, it's more controlled, it's less, it's more stable rather than to just use one throttle, and just stay off the brakes entirely. That's my advice. So you're in fourth gear still. You just let the car kind of decelerate, just come off it. You just want to maintain a constant speed here. But what you need to remember about this first corner is that you're setting yourself up for the next one, and then the same goes again. So it's very hard to master this set of corners, but once you do get a rhythm going, it is very rewarding. Hence why it's so fun. So you're in fourth gear as you come out of this corner. You want to stay mid-track and then change down to third once you've straightened your vehicle up. As you notice, we changed instantly once the steering had become straight, and that's because we don't want to upset the engine or the balance of the car. So that's the best time to do it, and you're using this engine braking from third now because fourth is quite low range, whereas third is around mid, and you want to maintain the speed, maintain that speed to stay hugged to the apex and then go mid-circuit again. Now you've got the next left-hand corner, move over to the right slightly and then just maintain that speed. You will be fiddling with the throttle, you'll be reapplying it, coming off again, reapplying it, but only slightly. And that's what you need to do in order to keep that momentum up and just keep going. It's just one constant speed pretty much throughout the whole thing. When you enter this corner, you're decelerating at this point because there is a bit of a gap between this corner and the one before it. This one's probably the hardest to master because what you can do, it's quite a long right-hander compared to the rest of the corners. So what you do is you accelerate a fair bit as you come out of the previous corner, so the one that we've just gone past, and then you just let it just decelerate. As you can hear, the revs are getting lower and lower until you get to around here. This is your acceleration point. As you can tell, it was a lot longer to get around this corner than it was the previous ones. So that's why you need that extra bit of acceleration compared to the rest, because you need the extra bit of speed. But you don't want to be doing that mid-corner. You want to do the acceleration before you get to it and then just let the car do itself and tuck it in. Otherwise, if you do the acceleration mid-corner, you're going to go wide off the apex and then you're going to screw up the exit. Okay, so that's why it's so important to do that beforehand. So you're accelerating out of this corner now, you're in third gear still, and this is my favourite corner coming up now. I think you head over to the right hand side, off the gas around now, which was around, well, it was around here that we came off the throttle. There's no real reference point, sadly. There's no boards on the sides or anything, and each cockpit is going to be different, so I can't exactly use one that I can see from here either. But all I can say is you're just going to get a feeling for it, to be honest. You want to stay off the curbing for this corner. You just want to stay on the tarmac, and it's quite a late apex because you want to get a nice run down this back straight. Well, it's not exactly a straight, but it's still a full throttle section of the track, and your acceleration point is around here. Again, like the previous corners before, you're maintaining your throttle. You're not accelerating, but you're not decelerating. At this point, that is, of the corner. So you want to be just holding it and waiting, and now you can start to accelerate now because you are going up onto the hill. You want to stay away from the right hand side if you can. Ideally, you want to be probably a bit further over to the right, just carry a bit more speed than what I did. You could probably get away with a bit more, but this is just a rough guide for you guys to get an idea of where you need to be. Plus, I've never driven the Bentley before, so right, so this part isn't really important, it's just full throttle for this section, and you're coming up to this right hand corner. Just before the 50-meter barrier, I'd say brake about here. This is probably your best bet. The 50-meter board, it's quite a late apex as it is, so you want to carry as much speed through it as you can, but not so much, otherwise you will end up in the gravel. This is an important corner. If you screw it up, it's going to go horribly wrong. If you cut it too early, you're going to go straight ahead into where the ST suspension banners are. If you do it too late, then you're also going to find it. You're going to lose a lot of time, and there's still a chance of going into the gravel. So that's why it's quite difficult to master this place. And you basically want to be around here. This is probably a good example of what I typically see on a day-to-day basis in terms of the corner exit for that corner. Coming up next is a right hand 90 degrees, and you want to start braking for that around here. This is your braking zone, but as you can see, we're not exactly straight. You're carrying a lot of speed coming out of the previous corner, which is why we're in the position that we are. But this is normal. I do this all the time. So you want to start braking towards the corner. You want to just basically aim for the apex, or at least mid-track. I usually aim for about here when I'm braking, because I don't want to be going straight ahead now, because I'm just going to go into the grass because of the speed I'm carrying. So what I tend to do is I just flick the car to the right before I touch my brakes. I'm usually aiming in this general direction, as we can currently see now. We did cut a bit of grass, but you get the general gist of it. You're braking heavily down into second gear until you get to around this point here, which is when you come off your brakes fully, and then you want to turn it in. If you stay on your brakes now, you're just going to seize the car up, and there's a lovely gravel trap on the other side for you. Didn't mean to go fast, full speed there. This is around the place you want to be for the exit. The reason being is that the curbing runs out just as you go under the bridge itself. So if you go too hot into here, you're either going to go into the barrier on the left, or you're going to clip the gravel and then end up in the grass. It's a very easy spot to spin out, mainly because there's an elevation change. I don't know if you noticed, we was going downhill before we made the corner, and then as we turned to the right, that's a lot of change for the car to take. So your front suspension is already kind of pushed down. It's absorbing, obviously, the fact that the track is now evened out, and then you're going to reapply the throttle again as soon as you can while turning to the right at 90 degrees. It's a lot for it to take, so hence why the speed control here is quite important. Otherwise you're just going to spin out. So it's important to get that corner really nice and smooth if you want to get a good lap time. So now we come up to the left 180, and you want to start braking once the car is straightened out. So that's about now. So the best thing I can say for that is probably when the Dunlop sign is just in your top left. But essentially, as soon as you straighten out, as soon as you've got around that corner, you want to start braking. You're braking down into second or first. You can have either one you want. It's entirely up to you. But you want a late turning because you have a long full acceleration for this part of the corner. It's a bit like what corner can I compare it to? Probably Silverstone through the village, which is that 180 that we did there. You want to basically be alongside the apex. So you want to be at the point where it's right there. You can see it in the bottom left-hand corner. So your nose is right alongside it, and that's only when you want to start turning in to try and make the corner. So as you can see, the tyres are screeching, la la la. Going around the corner. We want to start accelerating around now. This is probably the best bet to start accelerating. The track is starting to widen and open up, so you can start to reapply your throttle, and you want to be on the right hand side of the track by the time you exit the corner. Now it's full throttle through this next section. It's going to be a double right, but it's not really a big concern. Just let the car do its own thing, let it flow, just allow it to accelerate and do its thing. Sector 3, your braking point is just before this strip of tarmac here, which is, I don't know what it does. It's probably to a marshal post or something, or I have no idea. But this is quite handy that it is here, because it's perfect for giving you an idea of where you need to brake. You're braking from 5th or 6th down into 3rd for the first part of the corner. So there's 4th and waiting for 3rd, which is now. This is quite an important corner as well, because you're actually going back onto the longest straight of Suzuka. So you want to be, you're carrying enough speed to carry the car over to the right hand side, and that means you've done it right, and then you instantly want to come back off the throttle once you've passed the curbing here. As you can see, the curbing that's on the same side we're on has now disappeared, and we've actually stopped accelerating, and that's because the track is about to fall away from you as you turn into the last corner of sector 2. You want to just hug this apex until around now. The curbing has now disappeared on the left hand side, and you can now slowly, and I mean slowly, start to apply the throttle again. because the track is falling away from you still. You're not going to get as much turn in as you would like. Accelerating out at full speed, just whacking it on, is just going to make you go wide here, and there's another lovely gravel trap for you. And plus your lap will be invalidated if you go too wide on the exit here. So this is the best line that I can suggest. Third gear, just slowly apply it after you've passed the curbing and onto the back straight. Underneath the Panasonic sign you go, and then what we've got next, a Dunlop sign. Surprised it's not ST suspensions for once. And you come up to the fastest corner of the circuit. Braking is at the 50-meter board, and it is literally just one small tap of that gas brake pedal. That's all you need. You don't need a lot in the GT3 cars. The aero work and the downforce that you have will pretty much do most of the work for you. You can stay in 6th gear or 5th. There is no right or wrong. I usually like to stay in 5th because it gives me an indicator of how fast I'm going. If you take note of where the rev counter is, it might be different for other cars due to gearing, but mine is just on where the green lighting is, and that's the kind of speed that I'm looking for, or what I'm looking for on the dash before I make that corner. And that's just a good indicator for me in this vehicle of how fast I want to be going. And then you can just slowly start to reapply it once you've made your exit. Onto the last set of corners, almost there. So braking now at the 150 board on your left hand side, that is your reference to brake. And you'll be coming up on a 90-degree right hand corner, and then it's going to be basically it's a chicane. You're braking down to 2nd gear, stay on the left hand side of the track, and it's not the one on your right now, it's later than that, and you want to see the red curbing, not the blue one. And you can cut this corner quite aggressively, but it is very bumpy, so be very careful of how much you do cut it, because they can hurt your time a bit. Stay off the curbing as much as you can on the exit of the corner, because you don't want to unsettle the car before the straight. So stay off the 2nd curb and let the car just run wide on its own, and then accelerate out. And it's a long right hander, which is basically full throttle onto the pit straight for you, and that is a lap of Suzuka in Bentley Continental GT3. So we're going to let the car go at normal speed now, so you guys get an idea of how it feels. So fingers crossed and enjoy. Okay, so that was a full up of Suzuka Grand Prix Circuit in GT3. I hope you guys did enjoy. Fingers crossed it makes you more competitive for when you join Checkered Flag Endurance for this Sunday's race and for the 90-minute version with LMP2s. If you're just in the GTR3 class, you can start watching the video now. Thank you for popping by. But if you're in the LMP2 class, then continue watching. Right, okay, we're now in the LMP2. We're using one of the free cars at the moment. I don't know much about it. I've never driven it before. We're going to take it around Suzuka at the moment and see what kind of lap time that we can conjure up, and show you where you need to brake and where you need to turn in for this particular vehicle. Once again, if you've skipped to this part from GT and haven't watched the GTR3, we're going to be racing this Sunday at Checkered Flag Endurance with LMP2 and GTR3 for 25 minutes, and then we'll be moving on to a 90 minutes of Suzuka at the end of the month. So, changing to the internal camera, we come up to turn 1. Instantly you're presented with the double apex right hand corner, and you want to start braking around here. This is your braking reference. Use the tarmac that leads off to the left hand side, which is a good point to remember. You want to stay onto the left hand side, brake heavily until about now. This is where you want to stay off your brakes completely, and you want to turn the vehicle in. From there on, you're just letting the car do its own thing. It's decelerating on its own, and the turn-in is being generated as the car slows. One thing to bear in mind when you're in LMP2 is that low speed corners will not generate as much aerodynamic downforce compared to something at a high speed corner. So be careful of those rear wheels, they will want to spin on these low speed corners. Third gear, as you come into halfway point for this corner, you want to stay on the left hand side, and it's a late apex as you come into this corner. Only start to turn, you just saw the steering wheel there. I changed the direction quite sharply once the curbing presents itself alongside your vehicle, and you want to not accelerate until you get to around this point here. So for the LMP2s, just slowly start to apply the throttle as you start to come into the next few corners. Should be able to hit the curbing on the left hand side as you make your way out of the corner. That should be perfectly natural, and you're going to be in fourth gear for this lovely sector of corners in sector 1 of this track. So you want to maintain your speed while you go through these corners. Fourth gear, just keep it about mid-range on the rev limiter, and once the steering has straightened up, as you see there, we've now gone down to third gear. The reason for that is if you want to go a tiny bit slower for the next right hand corner here, you want to turn in fairly late, just hug that apex, which is about here, and go mid-circuit upon coming to the exit. Maintain that speed. You're going to be on and off that throttle to maintain a current pace. You want to be able to hug these apexes like they're your best friends and not much else. The next corner, you want to accelerate a tiny bit before entering this corner, because it's a very long right-hander, but not so much. It's just literally like a little flick of the throttle to get that extra bit more speed before you make your corner entry. But it's the same story. You want to hug this inside line, let the car decelerate mid-corner to get that turn in, to get that extra bit of grip, and then accelerate around here is where you want to start reapplying your throttle. Okay, there's no braking involved through that section of corners other than for turn 1. You should just be literally on the throttle and off it again, maintaining that current speed and trying to stay hugged and tight to those the curbing on the inside of the corners. As you approach this corner, you're accelerating out, and it's around here that you want to start thinking about decelerating just slightly and turning in again. Same story with the corners before. You're maintaining that current speed, decelerating just that tiny bit to be able to hug that apex because it is a very tight corner, and then accelerating now as you come up to the top of the hill and you can actually see where you're going. All I can say for that sector of corners is that practice makes perfect. It is not easy to get right. It takes a lot of practice to go fast at Suzuka. But we're now coming up to sector 2, which is no slower than the previous ones. Your braking point is at the 50-meter board. You want to be braking down into 4th or 3rd gear. It's entirely up to you which one you take. I personally choose 3rd gear as we make our way through the corner. Maybe not, I choose 4th. Oops. I thought I went down to third, but clearly I didn't. It's not to worry, but essentially the speed you want to maintain is that you hit that curb and you end up on the left-hand side of the track. You can actually go wide onto the green runoff area here, but it will make it slightly more tricky for when you come to this corner here. So it's not a massive issue, but it's just something you want to bear in mind for when you make your lines. Next corner you want to start braking around here just before you come to the end of the curbing on the left hand side. So it's going to be a second gear corner, get my gearing right that time, and you're completely off the brakes by about this time, and that's when you want to start turning in. Bearing in mind this is a very slow corner, you're in second gear, your aerodynamics is not going to be doing much for you at this time. So just make sure you use all of the track, hence why we're completely on the left hand side upon the exit. And make sure that you don't spin those rear wheels. As you can see, we did do a bit of a counter steer, which is just proof that the car gets very unsettled at low corners. Okay, so now we're coming up to the 180 left hand corner. You want to start braking as soon as possible once the car has actually become straight. You don't want to be braking any time before, probably about here, because the car will be still doing its thing, turning and resettling itself. So this is the best time to brake probably, and go down into second or first gear. It's entirely up to you. You want to turn in once you're essentially alongside the corner or alongside the apex. You want to hug that inside line, wait for that track to reopen up again before you get onto that acceleration point, and just again mind the rear wheels because they're spinning, as you can hear now. You can probably hear that when we go full speed next lap around about how unstable these cars are. But now it's full throttle to the end of sector 2 and entering sector 3 now. You don't have to worry about this, just let the car flow, do its own thing. And we are now in sector 3. This is your braking point. The tarmac on the right hand side is your reference brake just before or alongside it. It's quite a late apex here before you get onto the back straight of the circuit, and you want to be going for fourth or third gear. Again, entirely your choice depending on what your wheels are doing. We chose third gear for this particular corner. It's a late apex. Let the car carry the speed through the corner and run wide onto the curbing on the right hand side. No acceleration is needed. Well, actually that's a lie. You need a tiny bit. Just keep the speed up from what you currently have. And once you get around to about this point, you want to come back off the throttle again. The reason is you're going to have another left. It's a double apex, similar to turn 1, just the opposite direction. And if you think of turn 1, but instead of the track rising as you come out of the corner, it's now dipping away from you. So that means two things. One, it's blind, so you can't see it. And two, you're not going to have as much grip on the front wheels because the track is falling away from you. So what you need to do is decelerate, prepare for that get that nice line before you get onto the straight. This is probably the most important corner on the track because, again, as always, getting speed onto the straight is essential. So this is probably where you're decelerating. You're now actually slowing the car down up until this point here. You want to start applying your throttle, but slowly, because you don't know where you are yet in terms of grip, in terms of where you are going to be heading, but you're hugging this inside line, just waiting for that right moment to reapply. So you can start to reapply it now, okay? And you're waiting to see the curbing, which is about now. You can see this green patching here. Now you can see the dip in the track. Everything's visible. So now you've got this ideal overview of what's happening below you. You can now start to hammer down and reapply the rest of the throttle, and that should be, as a result, you should be on the right hand side as you exit the corner, getting optimal speed onto the back straight. Onto the Panasonic sign once again, as we did in GT3, onto the fastest corner of the circuit. This is essentially full throttle. There's hardly any, you may need to come off the throttle a tiny bit, but there's no braking involved, there's nothing. No braking required whatsoever. Just literally full throttle with the thing and, hold on for dear life. Last two corners, the chicane, braking board 150 is your life-saving tool at the moment, otherwise you will die. Start braking heavily down into second gear and stay off the curbs this time. Unlike GT3, you can't really be that aggressive on the curbing for this corner. It's going to lose you a lot of time. Main reason for that is, again, your aerodynamics isn't really giving you much to play with. As you can see, as soon as we hit that curb, this car is just absolutely dancing. So hence why you want to avoid this red curbing on the inside as much as you possibly can. And as you can see, we learnt our lesson on the second apex, and we are nice and smooth for the exit onto the pit straight, which is essential. Again, it's going to be a long right-hander, which is full throttle for you onto the end of the lap. So we're going to let it run at normal speed now, so you guys can get an idea of what it looks and feels like. So that was a full lap of Suzuka Circuit, the Grand Prix version in LMP2. I hope it makes you more competitive for this Sunday's race at Checker Flag Endurance. Don't forget to sign up for the 90-minute version, which will be happening at the end of March if you're interested in a bit more of a challenge rather than 25 minutes. Thank you for watching, guys. Do give us a like and subscribe if it did help you, so I can make more of these, and I will see you around next time.